Keep watching The Politics every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time on New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Welcome to today's show of Talking Politics. I am Robert Press, reporter for the Bronx Chronicle, Co-op City News, Parkchester Times, and host of this show. A check of the weather today calls for showers at any time. The rain, and I'll go into a little bit about the rain that has fallen the past 2 weeks when I get to Governor Hochul and what's happening upstate. But as for this weekend, both days appear to be perfect beach days with lots of sunshine and temperature in the high 80s. So take that sunscreen with you. This weather has not been seen since May, that we had a perfect weekend. But however, last month was the planet's warmest June since global temperature record keeping began in 1850. The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration said in its monthly climate update yesterday, it is a trend that is likely to continue into July and possibly August. Let's get into politics and our favorite subject, Donald Trump and his worries. Donald Trump now says he's a target again in a special counsel's investigation into January 6th. It would be the second time the special counsel has notified the former president that he's likely to face an indictment, this time in connection with the criminal investigation of the Capitol attack. Former President Trump said on Tuesday that he had received a target letter indicating that he was the subject of an investigation in connection with the events leading up to the Capitol attack, and that he could soon face federal indictment for his efforts to hold on to power after the 2020 election loss, potentially adding to the remarkable array of criminal charges and other legal troubles facing him, even as he campaigns to return to the White House next year. Mr. Trump was informed by his lawyers on Sunday that he received a so-called target letter from Jack Smith, the special counsel investigating the attempt to reverse his decision at the polls. Prosecutors use target letters to tell potential defendants that investigators have evidence tying them to crimes that could be subject to indictment. Mr. Trump called him deranged Jack Smith in a letter Sunday night, informing that he was a target of January 6th grand jury investigation. Trump said in a post on his social media platform, "Such a letter is always means that an arrest and indictment," wrote Trump, whose campaign is rooted in the accusations of political prosecution and a promise to purge the Justice Department and Federal Bureau of Investigation of personnel he sees hostile to him and his agenda. An indictment of Mr. Trump would be the second brought by Mr. Smith, who was also prosecuting the former president for risking national security secrets by taking classified documents from the White House and obstructing the government's effort to reclaim the materials. Mr. Trump is also under indictment in Manhattan on charges related to hush money payments to a porn star before the 2016 election. And he faces the likelihood of charges from District Attorney in Fulton County, Georgia, who has been conducting a wide-ranging inquiry into Mr. Trump's attempt to reverse the 2020 election loss in that state. The target letter cites 3 statutes that could be applied in the prosecution of Mr. Trump by Mr. Smith's team. They include a potential charge of conspiracy to defraud the United States and a broad charge related to a violation of rights. Whether Mr. Smith and his prosecutors will charge Mr. Trump on any of these statutes remain unclear, but they appear to have assembled evidence about an array of tactics that Mr. Trump and his allies used to stave off the election defeat. These efforts including assembling states of so-called fake electors from swing states that Mr. Trump lost, pressuring state officials to block or delay Joe Biden's victory, seeking to pursue Vice President Mike Pence to impede the congressional certification of the Electoral College outcome, raising money based on false claims of election fraud, and rallying supporters to come to Washington and march on the Capitol on January 6, 2021. It also remains unknown whether others might be charged along with Trump, several of his closest allies during his efforts to remain in power, including Rudolph Giuliani, who served as his personal lawyer, and John Eastman, who promoted the idea that Mr. Pence could keep Congress from certifying Mr. Biden's victory, said through their lawyers that they have not received target letters. Just hours after Trump discloses receipt of target letter, the Michigan Attorney General also announced felony state charges against 16 people for their involvement in an attempt to overturn Mr. Biden's victory in that state by convening a slate of pro-Trump electors. The news of another potential indictment of Mr. Trump underscores the stakes of an intensifying legal and political battle whose consequences are both incalculable and unpredictable. Mr. Trump remains a dominant frontrunner in the Republican nomination for president in spite of, and to some degree of, because of the growing list of charges and potential charges against him. His campaign strategy has been to embrace the investigations as evidence of a plot by the Democratic administration to deny him and his supporters a victory in 2024, a message that continues to resonate among his followers who have received it. But for Trump, the stakes are deeply personal, given the serious threat that he could face prison time if convicted in one or more of the cases. In that sense, a winning campaign and the power to make at least the federal cases go away by pardoning himself or directing the Justice Department to miss them is also a battle for his liberty. Now, on to another person who's in trouble, George Santos. It seems that the embattled incumbent Congress member is being outraised by his Democratic challengers and a Republican vying for the seat. Democrat John Lafazan has raised over $555,000 so far in his bid to unseat the embattled Republican George Santos, according to Lafazan's campaign. Santos, who lied about huge swaths of his resume and background, is now facing federal criminal charges and reportedly a Department of Justice investigation into his campaign finances. Long Island Republicans have raised about $133,000 between April and June, according to campaign filings released Friday. And an affiliated committee called Devitter Santos Victory Committee has raised about $17,000 since January. Santos used $85,000 of what he took in to start to pay himself back for $700,000 in loans that he previously reported making to his campaign. The combined total of roughly $150,000 raised for Santos over the past few months was easily outdone by several competitors. Former Democratic State Senator Anna Kaplan, who entered the race in May, raised about $455,000 through the end of June, according to her campaign finance filing. That includes $190,000 Kaplan loaned to her own campaign, plus $7,200 she donated to her own campaign. Democrats Zach Malone, formerly a Democratic nonprofit, founder of a Democratic nonprofit, reported early this week raising $417,000 in just 6 weeks since entering the race. Republican Kelly Curry, a veteran and former vice president at J.P. Morgan, is mounting a primary challenge to Santos and has raised over $200,000. Santos faces bipartisan calls to resign, including from neighboring Republican congressional members, and he isn't expected to get the Republican support. Now, as far as a challenge, there is word that Jamal Bowman may face a challenge from current Westchester County Executive George Latimer. This is because in 2015, Latimer will be term limited out of his office. He served 2 terms as Westchester County legislator, executive rather, and he will have nowhere to go. So a run against Bowman could mean the swing in power back to moderate from the extreme right. As we go into other matters, the MTA is going to raise subway and bus fares. They're hiking it since, well, it's the first hike since 2019. It's going to go up 15 cents to $2.90 on August 20th. As part of a package, a 7-day unlimited ride Metro card will go up $1 to $34, while the 30-day pass will jump from $127 to $132. The express bus fare is going from $6.75 to $7, with the 7-day unlimited bus pass increasing to $64, up from $62. Not only that, but higher tolls will kick in on August 6th on MTA bridges and tunnels. Officials say the fare and tolls will generate $117 million this year for an agency still recovering financially from the pandemic, with more increase planned for 2025 and 2027. So if you're coming in from New Jersey, the toll on the George Washington Bridge is much less than the toll on the Whitestone Bridge or the Throgneck Bridge. I just don't get it how you can come from state to state and be cheaper than going from borough to borough. New York City Police Commissioner Edward Caban, who was just promoted to the role early this week from being the first deputy commissioner, will get a raise of just $579. As first deputy commissioner, Caban received a salary of $242,592, according to online city records. Keaton Sewell, the previous commissioner, had a salary of $243,171. The NYPD confirmed that Caban's commissioner's salary will be the same as his predecessor because it is a set base pay for the position. The base salary does not include bonuses or other benefits. These salaries appear to be consistent with the salaries of the previous first deputy commissioners NYPD, Ben Tucker, who was under Commissioner Thurman Shea, who had an annual salary of $242,592. But the first deputy and the commissioner's salary are less than New York City Mayor Eric Adams, Deputy Mayor for Public Safety Philip Banks, whose salary is $251,982 per year. Now, accordingly, New York City has agreed to pay $13 million to more than 1,000 New Yorkers who were arrested in the 2020 George Floyd demonstrations, marking one of the largest settlement agreements with protesters in a class action suit in U.S. history, according to court records filed the other night. It appears that each person arrested will get around $10,000, and, well, that's about that for that. As for the rain, Governor Hochul cautioned to severe thunderstorms that will continue to threaten upstate New York. Portions of West New York, Finger Lakes, the southern tier regions are at great risk of the flooding or rain that it came last night and going into Friday. Heavy downpours and strong winds may cause flash flooding, down trees, and power outages. Most severe weather not expected to impact the eastern portion of the state, which is down here in the city, but localized heavy downpours are possible. And as you can see, the clouds are moving in here. A flood watch goes into effect on Friday afternoon and evening for parts of the North County and Capital Region, which is Albany, where the legislators are not right now, so they don't have to worry about any flooded roads. Governor Hochul urged New Yorkers, especially those in the western half of the state, to prepare for potential severe thunderstorms, and that her team is closely tracking the forecast for the rest of the week as Mother Nature continues to bring severe weather our way. And we're going to take a little break here. The governor gave some tips on what to do. If you see flooded roadway, don't drive into it. Lightning is follow the 30-30 rule. If the time between you see a flash of lightning and hear thunder is 30 seconds or less, the lightning is close to you and it could hit you, and that you should seek shelter immediately. Tornadoes, if an outdoor tornado warning is issued, seek shelter immediately. And in a high-rise building, go to an interior small room away from the glass. Do not use elevators and use the stairs instead. Well, I'm going to stop now for a commercial since I'm at the halfway mark. When I come back, I'll talk a little bit about the asylum seekers and what Mayor Adams has done. So let's go to a commercial, Mr. Producer.
Undoubtedly, Africa is the best tourism destination on Earth. The continent is blessed with the most conducive atmosphere. To feel and enjoy these blessings, join the most productive one-week tour of the continent organized by Daylight Africa every September 2nd to September 9th to see beyond the fallacies about Africa on the mainstream media. Contact us at daylightafrica@gmail.com or call 718-822-5555. Daylight Africa. Revolutionizing tourism industries in Africa.
Welcome back to the show. Let's talk about what Mayor Adams is doing about asylum seekers. As asylum seekers in the city care tops 54,800, almost 55,000 people, Mayor Adams announces a new policy to help asylum seekers move from shelters. Mayor Adams announced the additional policies to help asylum seekers in city care move out of shelters and create critically needed space for arriving families with children seeking asylum. The city has made every effort to continue to serving more than 90,000 asylum seekers who have arrived in New York City since last spring. But with an average of 300 to 500 people still arriving each day, more than 5,500 immigrants, still 55,000 migrants still in the city's care, New York City is at its capacity and has responded in the absence of state and federal action. In the coming days, the city will begin to provide 60 days notice to asylum seekers to find alternate housing paired with intensified caseworker services to help adult asylum seekers explore other housing options and take the next step in their journey. Each asylum seeker given notice will have housing options Each asylum seeker given notice will have multiple touch points with caseworkers over the 60 days to discuss their options and plan their next steps. The city announced new flyers to combat misinformation at the border and inform asylum seekers that the city cannot continue the level of service that is provided. This is one of the flyers that the city is sending down to Texas, that there's no more room here in the city. As you can see, it says since April 2022, more than 90,000 migrants have come to New York City. There is no guarantee we can be able to provide shelter and services to new arrivals. Housing in New York City is very expensive. Cost of food and transportation and other necessities in New York City is the highest in the United States. Please consider another city as you make your decision where to settle in the United States. In essence, that's don't come to New York City. Now, let's go into another topic that's a favorite, and it's coming up now. It's Rikers Island. The New York City Controller Office released its monthly update to the Department of Corrections dashboard. This month's dashboard data highlights the persistent issues surrounding the Department of Correction operations, from rising jail population to increased in detained individuals with serious mental illness. Now, the monthly metric for June, as of July 1st, the Department of Correction had 6,081 people, 77 more than May. The Department of Corrections admitted 2,006 people to the jail in June, which was 73 more than May. 1,935 people were discharged in June, 21 fewer than in May. In June, the average stay of an incarcerated person increased from 90 days, a 14-day reduction from May. 1,207 people with serious mental illness were detained on Rikers Island in May, up from 1,184 in April. Individuals with serious mental illness make up 20% of the total detained population in Rikers. Individuals in Department of Correction facilities missed medical appointments 11,691 times in May, which is 1,510 more appointments than missed in April of 23. The last time the number of missed medical appointments reached this peak was April of 2022. Judges assigned cash bail to 1,227 individuals May for the 13th consecutive month. There were 67 fewer officers in May and June, with a 6,449 head count, which is more than one officer per detainee. Fewer incidents of violence occurred in June. The number of assaults decreased to 47, down 7 from May. 67 fewer fights happened in June, a total of 412, and there were 18 fewer slashings and stabbings. So things are still bad in Rikers Island. And the U.S. Attorney, Damian Williams, made a statement that he feels that a court-appointed receiver should take over Rikers Island, that it should go into federal hands. And I'll read his statement. Damian Williams, the United States Attorney for Southern District of New York, announced his office's intention to seek the appointment of a receiver to address the ongoing risk of harm to both incarcerated individuals and the Department of Corrections staff. U.S. Attorney Williams said, Rikers Island has been in crisis for years. This is a collective failure with deep roots spanning multiple mayoral administrations and DOC commissioners. But after 8 years of trying every tool in the toolkit, we cannot wait any longer for substantial progress to materialize. This is why my office will seek a court-appointed receiver to address the conditions on Rikers Island. There's other things going on Community Board 11. This is just the note that just came up. In 2015, the U.S. entered into a consent decree with the City of New York and Department of Correction to address violations of constitutional rights of incarcerated individuals at Rikers Island, which is known as the consent decree. That required the Department of Correction to develop and implement a wide range of reforms to reduce the level of violence in jails and ensure the safety and well-being of people in custody, as well as correctional officers. Over the past 8 years, this office has worked diligently with the monitor appointed pursuant to the consent decree and all parties to address the ongoing unsafe conditions on Rikers Island. After multiple remedial orders and an action plan that has been placed for over a year, on July 10th, 2023, the monitor found that despite some progress in certain areas, the Department of Correction has not made substantial and demonstrable progress in implementing the reforms, initiatives, plans, systems, and practices as outlined in the action plan. And there has not been a substantial reduction in the risk of harm currently facing incarcerated individuals or the department staff. In light of these findings, the office has decided to pursue contempt proceedings and seek conditional relief from the court, including appointment of a receiver to address the ongoing risk of harm to both incarcerated individuals and Department of Corrections staff. This means that the U.S. Attorney is seeking to have the federal government take over Rikers Island. Mayor Adams has said, I could still work on it, I'm getting it better, but it appears like the U.S. attorneys have said, after 8 years, the city can't do anything. There will be 5 free buses in New York City, 1 in each borough. The B60, which runs in Brooklyn between Williams and Flatlands Avenue, in Canarsie, and the Williamsburg Bridge Plaza. The M116, which operates across Manhattan, primarily across 116th Street, Manhattan Avenue, and West 106th Street. The Q4 Local and Limited, which runs in Southeast Queens between Cambria Heights and Jamaica Center. The S46/96, which runs in Staten Island between the St. George Ferry and West Shore Plaza. And in the Bronx, the BX18A/P, which runs in a loop in the Western Bronx between Undercliff Avenue, or Sedgwick Avenue, as it says, and the Grand Concourse. MTA officials say these free routes serve about 44,000 of the agency's 1.3 million weekday bus riders and are slated to run a pilot program for at least 6 months, but no longer than a year. Governor Hochul and the state legislature required the MTA to launch this program as part of the state budget, which was approved in May. Excuse me. City Hall now has pitched a 34,000-seat cricket stadium in Van Cortlandt Park. The temporary facility would not be completed before next June, would need to be completed before next June to host matches in the T20 Cricket World Cup, according to local officials briefed by the administration. The Adams administration has reached out to local officials in the Bronx about an ambitious plan to erect a 34,000-seat stadium in Van Cortlandt Park to host the games next year's edition of one of cricket's premier global tournaments. The temporary and modular structure would host matches next June in the 2024 T20 World Cup held by the International Cricket Council. The Cup will be held for the first time in the West Indies and the United States next year in an attempt to grow the relatively small U.S. audience for the world's second most popular sport. While Dubai-based ICC PCC has not yet announced host cities for next year's event. Its proposal for Van Cortlandt Park, labeled confidential, says it is likely that one or more of the high-profile fixtures in the tournament would be staged at the proposed New York City venue. Now, last night, there was a meeting of Community Board 11 as far as this proposal of the 34,000-seat cricket stadium. There were 150 people on the Zoom meeting, or about 30 of them cramped into the small conference room at Community Board 8. Assemblyman Jeffrey Dinowitz and Councilman Eric Dinowitz were the only two elected officials at the meeting, and both elected officials showed caution before and during and after the construction phase, because they say that this will be taking up more space than Yankee Stadium, and they want a total replacement of the park area when it's done. Assemblyman Dinowitz said that, like I said, this is larger than Yankee Stadium to be built in Van Cortlandt Park. He wanted to know where people would be parking. Would the park be put back as it is, if or better? He also mentioned that the state would have to alienate the parkland, which the legislature will not be meeting until January 2024. Comments also included more PEP officers, which are Parks Enforcement Police, and regular police officers from the 50th Precinct. The 50th Precinct has the lowest number of officers since it is the safest precinct, so they would need more officers to cover Van Cortlandt Park. Community Board 8 Vice Chair Sergio Villavardi said if the board continues in its negative ways, that the board and the community won't have a seat at the table. He said that the board should have an open mind so the board can be part of the process and not excluded. There were other speakers who spoke of environmental issues, a public process, litigation to the park, and other concerns that a project this size would have. The lack of transparency by the mayor and the city. There was a resolution that the mayor find another spot for the stadium, but a motion to table was seconded, and the vote was 15 for and 5 opposed with no abstentions. So that resolution was tabled. And there was no other resolution presented because a motion to adjourn the meeting was seconded by 12 in favor, 2 objections, and 4 abstentions. So the meeting was adjourned without a resolution on the proposed cricket stadium in Van Cortlandt Park. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. Last week, Community Board 10 had a meeting on a proposed cannabis store, which I mentioned last week. The public hearing on the proposed cannabis store, or should I say licensed cannabis store, as the State Office of Cannabis Management has awarded the store a license, but the public will have their input Wednesday night, July 26, 7 p.m. at the Greek Institute located at 3573 Bruckner Boulevard. This is the first cannabis store in Community Board 10, and it seems like they are doing a proper process in handling this, unlike Community Board 11. It is the old 7-Eleven at 3220 Westchester Avenue, the corner of Continental Avenue. Let me just say that National Night Out is Tuesday, August 1st. Join your local police precinct officers in an annual community building campaign that promotes police community partnership to help make our neighborhood safer, more caring places to live. It seeks to strengthen the relationship between neighborhood and law enforcement, fostering a true sense of community where people can enjoy barbecues, bouncy houses, face painting, food and fun, meet leaders, their elected officials, and personnel from your local precinct, and interact with your neighbors, community members, local businesses, and the community, the common goal of partnership and strategy. The times and places I'll probably have next week because they are not up. There's only a few up. Lastly, before I leave, I want to just say one thing, that on July 4th, there was fireworks being set off all over the Bronx. In Community Board 11, the 49th Precinct, at the intersection of White Plains Road and Morris Park Avenue, many youths closed the street as they set off fireworks in the intersection. Several police officers responded to reopen the intersection and were met with resistance from the youths. The people were asked to clear the intersection so traffic could proceed through the intersection. The police wound up being called names, yelled at, asked for their badge numbers, that they are in a private community and they are not wanted there. This is in the area of Little Yemen, which is right in between Morris Park and Van Nest. As the police continued to try and dispense the gathering, one officer was attacked and the other officers responded. The result was that several people were arrested and at least one police officer was hurt. We now learn that the two NCO officers, one from Sector A and one from Sector B, and two other police officers have been placed on modified duty, and that the oldest NCO contingent in the 49th precinct, Section A, will probably not return to their post because, as I said, one of the NCO officers, that's neighborhood coordination officers, was hurt, and the other one is on modified duty. So the thing is that the Yemen community has to come together. It seems that with the cannabis and with the Americanization of the youth, there are problems, and the elders in the Yemen community have to get together with the youth and teach them things. That's about it for today's show. As far as Community Board 11 goes, I have my little friend here who made some comments. You're going to see some changes, it looks like, on Community Board 11. It appears that the chair is going to shuffle the board chair, Bernadette Ferrara, is moving around people, putting new people in, or I should say moving around, changing committee chairs, and we'll see how the rest of the board takes that. And let me just say thank you, Kevin. I agree with you. There probably is a better space, but this is what the state is doing. Don't be surprised because the state has also said that they will be selling cannabis. There are 300,000 pounds of harvested cannabis that are sitting in warehouses, and the state wants to sell it. So they're going to be announcing that at certain fairs, at certain events and other things, that you'll be able to buy cannabis there. So obviously they're going to be like the State Liquor Authority and give a one-day permit to sell the product at events. So with that, I'm going to close the show, say thank you to Kevin, thank you to my other commentator. We can go on about Community Board 11, but let's leave that for next week if possible. And let me say thank you to everybody who was watching, and have a good day and enjoy the beautiful weekend. Thank you.
Do you wish your business makes it to the top list of the most searched for business in the US and around the world? Or are you searching for halal compliant services and products online? Then Halal Finder is your online resource directory, pointing you to the right places and products. Let's help you explore halal products and services of your choice as we manage many halal businesses across the world. Promote your business with halalfinder.com, the only plug you need to grow. Our services include business listing, digital marketing, branding strategy, SEO campaigns, crowdfunding, and humanitarian support. On our Compassion Corner, we offer crowdfunding of halal ventures and humanitarian services. In this section, you can make or receive donations, start donation campaign, and check existing donation campaigns. And by paying zakat and sadaqah to our Compassion platform on halalfinder.com, you have supported the poor, widows or widowers, orphans, and the likes around the world. Contact us at info@halalfinder.com or call +1 718 822 5555. Get started today at halalfinder.com.
Keep watching.